And we just ask, God, that their voices be heard, that they'll be used greatly to impact our city. And for those of us who have been working all year, we just ask that you would just continue to keep our city safe and protected to the end of the year. All of these things we ask in your Son's name. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll? Councilmember Davis,
Henry's here.
Councilmember Lee,
Present.
Councilmember Warner, excused. Councilmember Wax,
Present.
Councilmember Nitzkowski,
Present.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Present.
Councilmember Hammond,
Present.
Vice President McBride,
Present.
President White.
Present.
8 present.
Thank you. We'll now move to a report from the Subcommittee on Minutes for the November 22nd, 2021 meeting. I would like to entertain a motion to accept the Subcommittee report on minutes.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nitzkowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you so much. We do have a special business item, and that is the swearing-in ceremony for the 2022 Youth Advisory Council. Oh, the minutes? I did do that.
You did.
I think we have a roll call for that, too.
We didn't have a roll call.
We did have a roll call on the subcommittee on minutes?
Yeah.
Yes, we
just
did.
We did?
You sure did.
Yep.
But thank you. Yeah, we did do that.
Yep.
Thank you, that's no problem.
President White, we didn't have the report before we had the roll call
Okay.
accepting it.
Okay, okay, please go back and do the report on subcommittee on minutes. Is there a report?
Yes. Go ahead. The report of the Subcommittee on Minutes. To the Common Council of the City of South Bend, the subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the November 22nd, 2021 meeting and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. I guess I'm so excited with all these young people. I don't know if I'm going to make it through the whole meeting, but so that we did have a motion, and it was second, correct? So now we had the roll call. Okay, thank you. Okay, no problem. Now we're going to be moving to the swearing in of the youth council members. Again, I know I'm excited, and hopefully I know all the council members are as well. Prior to bringing the youth council members before you, I would like just to share some opening comments about the youth council. The South Bend Common Council recognized the importance of creating a structure for young people to share their input and become involved in the civic process. We know that government can directly benefit from the input of our youth by encouraging the importance of civic engagement, but most important, using the power of their voices. Thus, the Youth Advisory Council was created. Youth voices has always been very vital to social and political change in America. In these days of national unrest, demands for social justice and change, our hope is that by establishing a platform for young people to use the power of their voices and to assist them to become part of the national and local conversations, their experiences and perspectives can shape a better future. So at this time, I'm going to ask Clerk Jones to call members of the prospective upcoming 2022 Youth Advisory Council up in front of the platform, after which she will swear each and every one of you in. Good evening, everyone. When I call your name, I would like for you to come up and stand in front You can turn. And face me.
O'Reilly. Jay Gretzky, O'Reilly. Joseph. Okay. Alondra Correa from Washington. Rhonda Kindred from Washington. These are not all of our students, but these are the ones that can come today. Some of the others are at events, sporting events and things. The caliber of students that we choose there are involved in everything. So we're just fortunate and happy that these are here. So what I want you to do, I'm a little nervous too. Usually I know this by heart, so don't mess up because I'm nervous. Raise your right hand, and when I can see your name, when I say I, you all say your names together, otherwise it's going to take a long time. Okay, so when I say I, you say I, and then you say your name, okay? I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the Common Council Youth Advisory Committee. Let's slow this down. Of the Common Council Youth Advisory Committee. Or yeah. So help me God. You are official.
At this time, I'm going to ask the Common Council members to come down and join in a picture with our Youth Advisory Board, Council, and also the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Todd Cummings, and I did see School Representative Leslie Wesley. Please join. These are our students. This is our future. And again, we're so excited to have these young people.
Everybody standing up nice and tall on your back. Bring your chins down. Can you pull our masks down? Can we take masks off for this, or you don't want it, or? Okay. All right, there we go. Everybody stand up nice and straight. Big smiles. 1, 2, and 3. Couple more. 1, 2, 3. And last one. 1, 2, and 3. Good job. Let's give them another round of
We have a total of 14 members that are part of the Youth Advisory Council. Again, 4 will be returning to work with our new Youth Advisory Council members, and they will be leaving because, you know, education is so important, and we want to make sure that they go back home and that they do their homework. So, see you later, students. Okay, we're going to continue with our council meeting. I would like to entertain a motion to resolve into the committee of the whole.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
President White,
Aye.
8 ayes.
Just keep it, President White, that's okay.
The committee of the whole is now in session. This is the portion of the council's meeting where the bills are given a second reading and public hearing. I wish to share with you that the bills that will be given a second reading and public hearing have been given a first reading and set for committee meeting and public hearing prior to this evening's meeting. In addition, you will hear from the chairperson of the committee where the bill was discussed and the results of their discussion. If the proposed ordinance is a zoning ordinance, a report from a staff member will also be given. In all other situations, the formal presentation on the proposed ordinance will immediately follow the committee report. The formal presentation shall be untimed. And the first bill we have before us this evening is Bill number 131-21. Clerk Jones, could you please give that bill a second reading?
Yes. 13121, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 2730 Mishawaka Avenue.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, Chair, this came before the Zoning and Annexation Committee this afternoon and comes to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hammond. Is there a petitioner present? And I ask you state your name and address for the record and give us the key points regarding the bill. Mr. Molnar.
Good evening, Council. Joe Molnar, zoning specialist with offices on the 14th floor of the County City Building. Today before you is a petition for special exception at property located at 2730 Mishawaka Avenue, zoned NC Neighborhood Center. In the NC district, which is more pedestrian orientated, if you want to do an auto use such as this, which is a special exception for auto repair minor, you have to go through this special exception process for council to overview it and give their okay. The property, like I said, is located at 2730 Mishawaka Avenue, right in the heart of River Park on Mishawaka Avenue. Here is a look at the building as it sits today. It is immediately to the east of Frankie's Tacos, if you're aware of where that is. The building is currently vacant and has been for a number of years. It was once an auto repair shop, and that's what it was originally constructed for. And this is a proposed site plan layout that the staff has worked with the petitioner to set up. While the NC district encourages pedestrian-oriented development, the use of vehicle service minor is an allowed special exception in the district for instances like this where the original intent of the building was for automotive repair. Activation of this currently vacant building to its original use is consistent with the character of the district and the surrounding area and should help bring revitalization to Mishawaka Avenue itself. The staff is working with the petitioner on making sure that any impact to the neighbors would be minimal with a proper site layout. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, and the petitioner is here as well. This does come before you with a favorable recommendation from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Molnar. Would the petitioner like to come forward and make, and if you could just give your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, my name is Stephen Rivette. I live at 834 South 29th Street in River Park, and I rent the property at 2730 Mishawaka Avenue in River Park also.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to make a statement regarding the petition?
I just want to get the special exemption so I can open and everything be legal and how it's supposed to be right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point then, I'm going to ask the council members if they have any questions. at this time? Okay, I do not see any members with any questions at this time. So at this time, we're going to go to the public hearing portion. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of Bill 131-21?
There is no one virtually expressing interest to speak in favor of Bill 13121.
Thank you. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one present virtually expressing interest to speak in opposition of Bill 13121.
Thank you so much, Clerk Jones. At this point, the public hearing on Bill 131-21 is now closed. Council members wish to make any statements regarding this bill? Councilman Wax?
Thank you. I just want to thank you for your investment in South Bend, and I hope you have a lot of success.
Chair. We're going to start this way and go around. Councilman Lee?
I will say what I said in the committee meeting. Whenever a building goes dormant, it dies. But the moment someone begins to utilize it, it comes back to life. So we certainly are excited about people bringing buildings back to life, and we hope that you'll be very successful, and congratulations.
Councilman Davis?
Much success, good job. Just don't eat all the tacos up, man.
Thank you. Councilwoman McBride?
Welcome to the 3rd District. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rachel Tomas Morgan?
Thank you for your investment and for your revitalization of Mishawaka Avenue. It's very exciting to see what's happening on that avenue.
And Councilwoman Hammond?
We just want to wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Okay, I would now like, and thank you for again, revitalizing that building and bringing new business to the city of South Bend. So at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 131-21.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it has been motioned and duly seconded. Clerk Jones, could you please call the roll for Bill 131-21?
Yes. Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
President White?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. Bill 131-21 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. We are going to move on to the second bill on the agenda. Do I have a motion to hear substitute Bill 135-21?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, could you call the roll to hear the substitute bill?
Yes. Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
President White?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. Is there a committee report?
Yes. Bill 135-21 was heard in the Personnel and Finance Committee today, and it comes to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, thank you so much. I see Mr. Parker is here. If you could state your name and address.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, council members. Dan Parker. I'm the city controller. My office is on the 12th floor of this building. So this bill, 13521, is a revision of the salary ordinance that was originally passed in October for the South Bend Fire Department. This follows additional negotiations with the local union and the reaching of a 3-year agreement that was subsequently approved by the union. And so the changes to the salary ordinance reflect the negotiated agreement. The main changes to the ordinance are obviously extending it from 1 year to 3 years. From a base wage perspective, the base wages for all ranks would be increased by 3.5% in 2022, 2.5% in 2023, and then 2% in 2024. There's also the addition of a 25-year longevity tier. So previously, the longest longevity was 20 years and up. There's now an additional 25-year and up longevity tier that gets paid out. So that is adding $6,500 for that in 2022, $7,250 in 2023, and $8,300 in 2024. Some of the other changes are creation of a new post-employment health plan that would be funded partially by the city at $120 per firefighter. That plan also allows firefighters to contribute some of their own money into that. It's a tax-deferred plan that helps firefighters offset some of the costs of healthcare. A lot of firefighters retire before 65, and so this helps bridge the gap between their retirement and when they are eligible for Medicare. There's also an increase in the city residency incentive from $400 to $2,500. As well as an increase in some EMS pay incentives. There's also, the last change was the removal of the uniform allowance, which was in the previous version of this, which was in the previous version of the salary ordinance. The substitute bill corrects some minor omissions that were just omitted inadvertently from the original bill, but they do reflect the negotiated agreement with the union. Those corrections were in Article 5A, regarding 2 EMS incentives and the addition of those, which were just inadvertently omitted. Those are not new, those are just ones that didn't make it into the first version. So that putting those in. And then also a negotiated increase to the charge for non-member fire department pensioners to have city health insurance in Article 10K. It was previously $50, and in negotiations, that was negotiated to increase to $100. So that was the other change from the original version of this bill to the substitute version. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council members may have. Because I forgot on me to do this initially, let me say thank you to Bob Palmer for his role in the negotiations, as well as to Councilmember Nisgowsky, Council Vice President McBride, and then Councilmember Troy Warner for your role in the negotiations and all the work you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Council members, and I would like to apologize to Ms. White. I'm so used to you sitting up here, President White. I realized I skipped over you at the last.
I'm fine.
Bill with you sitting down
No
there.
problem.
So my apologies, President White. So, council members, do you have any questions for Mr. Parker, Councilwoman Hammond?
Yes, Mr. Parker, I'm just wondering, the COVID bonus, how much was that agreed to?
So that is not a part of this agreement, so that's not, we're not asking for approval for today, but the agreement with the union on that was for a per firefighter one-time COVID premium pay of $2,500. That will be brought before council along with the proposals for other bargaining units as well as non-bargaining employees in early 2022. That'll be brought for approval as well as appropriation.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other council members that have a question for Mr. Parker? President White?
I'm fine.
Okay, then in that case, we're going to move to the public portion. At this time, is there anyone from the public here wishing to speak in favor of Bill 135-21?
There is no one virtually from the public that's wishing to speak in favor of this bill.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this bill?
There is no one expressing interest to speak in opposition of this bill as well.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. At this point, the public hearing on Bill 135-21 is now closed. Council members, do you wish to make any statements regarding this bill? Do you have? Okay, Councilman Wax.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank everybody involved in getting this bill in front of us today. I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to really take a second bite at this and really approve an ordinance that adequately compensates the firefighters for the great work that they do. And I'm glad that we were able to come back and do this. And I want to thank everybody who did the hard work to get to this point, our council members that were involved in this and the representatives of firefighters and the administration. And Mr. Palmer, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Lee.
You know, as I said in the committee meeting, it's so important that we understand that when you work as a first responder, how important those jobs are. So we're so grateful that the administration and the fire department could come to a agreement, and everybody seems to have won in this, and everybody feels better. That first vote caused, we got a lot of emails, but it wasn't our fault. So thank you, Bob, the closer, and Councilwoman Niskowski and Councilwoman McBride and Troy Warner for your work. And this is the result of when we all work together and put our minds together, the best outcomes come. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Davis, do you have any comments?
No, I'm just in full support of it. And congratulations to everyone that had a hand in ensuring the success of this negotiation.
Thank you. President White? I would just like to say I'm very thrilled that both sides were able to come back to the table and that the contract that has been ratified by the firefighters and accepted by the city and now the council is the work of people coming together, discussing critical issues, and reaching consensus. And so, again, we have an outstanding fire department. We support not only our firefighters, but also our employees within the city. And so I'm glad that we have this substitute before us, and it reflects the hard work of not only the firefighters union, but also the administration, our council representatives, and our attorney, Bob Palmer. So thank you so much, along with Mr. Parker. Thank you, President White. Does anybody else have any other comments? Councilwoman Hammond?
I would just like to repeat what I mentioned at the committee meeting, that it's vitally important that we create the stability for these workers in our fire department, creating a 3-year contract for them, and hopefully that will help us in recruiting and all of the other necessary pieces that have to go with that. So thank you to everyone that worked so hard to get this agreed upon.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan?
Thank you, Chair. At this point, everything has already been said, so I just add my gratitude and congratulations to all involved. Special congratulations to Chief Buchanan for an amazing team who have worked hard these past 2 years under such difficult conditions. We're so grateful for the work that you do for our city.
Thank you. Councilwoman McBride, do you have any statement?
I'm just glad that we were able to come, and be a part of the negotiations and the work that everyone has done. So to add anything else would be, remiss. So just thank you again, and for administration and the fire department and all the excellent work that they do, and the council as well for their support.
Thank you. And I would just like to echo my fellow council members up here that it was an honor to serve on that committee, and I'm glad that all sides were able to come to a good, positive agreement for our firefighters. At this point, I would now like to entertain a motion regarding the substitute bill 135-21.
I'd like to move that we send Bill 135-21 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Okay, it's been a motion made and duly seconded. Clerk Jones, could you please call the roll on substitute bill 135-21?
Councilmember Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. The bill will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Moving on the agenda, the next bill is Bill Number 136-21. Clerk Jones, could you please give that bill a second reading?
Yes. 136-21, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, adopting an investment policy for the City of South Bend for calendar year 2022.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, Bill 13621 was heard in the Personnel and Finance Committee meeting today and is sent to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present, Mr. Parker?
Yes, thank you, council members. So Bill 13621 mirrors an ordinance that was passed by council in December of 2020. So there is a certain part of the authorization to invest the city's resources that requires annual approval by the fiscal body per state statute. And so we are not making any changes to the city's investment policy, just simply asking that the council reauthorize the continued investment policy of the city. But I'm happy to answer any questions on how we invest our money, any of that.
Okay, thank you. Council members, do you have any questions for Mr. Parker on the bill before us? Seeing none, I'm going to move to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of Bill 136-21?
There is no one from the public wishing to speak in favor of Bill 13621.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one wishing to speak in opposition of Bill 13621.
Thank you. At this point, the hearing on Bill 136-21 is now closed. Council members, do you wish to make any statements regarding the bill? If not, I would like to have a motion to entertain the Bill 136-21.
Motion to send to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and it's been duly seconded. Clerk Jones, could you please read Bill 136-21? Give the roll call, I'm sorry.
Okay. Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you so much. Bill 136-21 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. We're going to move down to the next bill, which is Bill 137-21. Clerk Jones, could you please give that bill a second reading?
Yes. 13721, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, for budget transfers for various departments within the City of South Bend, Indiana for the year 2021.
Thank you so much. Is there a committee report?
Yes, Bill 13721 was heard in Personnel and Finance Committee today, and it's sent to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is Mr. Parker?
Yes, thank you. So Bill 13721 is the first of the two quarterly budget adjustment bills. This one is the budget transfer bill. So as we talked about in committee, it doesn't increase or decrease the overall budget. It simply transfers appropriations either between different divisions within a single department or between different cost categories within a single division. So the cost categories would be personnel, supplies, services, and capital. So it doesn't increase the budget, just transfers them from one of those transfers the budget from one of those cost categories to another to reflect some changes in actual operations relative to budget. But I am happy to answer any questions that council members have on any of the individual transfers that are contained in there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parker. Council members, do you have any questions for Mr. Parker? Seeing none, we're going to move to the public portion of the, is anyone here wishing to speak in favor of Bill number 137-21?
There is no one from the public that is wishing to speak in favor of Bill 13721.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one present wishing to speak in opposition of the bill as well.
Okay, thank you. At this point, the public hearing on Bill 137-21 is now closed. Council members wish to make a statement regarding the bill? If not, I'd like to, if you would like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 137-21. I'll make a motion that Bill 137-21 be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. There has been a motion made and duly seconded. Clerk Jones, could you please call the roll for Bill 137-21?
Yes. Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Okay, thank you so much. Bill 137-21 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. So now we are moving on to Bill number 138-21. Clerk Jones, could you please give that bill a second reading?
Yes. 13821, Public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city services operations for the year 2021 of $229,500 from the General Fund Number 101, $1,070,000 from the Parks and Recreation Fund Number 201, $262,000 from the Studebaker Oliver Revitalization Grant Fund Number 209, $415,466 from the DCI Federal Grant Fund Number 212, $44,000 from the Law Enforcement Continuing Education Fund Number 220, $380,000 from the Liability Insurance Premium Reserve Fund Number 226, $10,000 from the Local Road and Street Fund Number 251, $29,100 from the IT Innovation 311 Call Center Fund Number 279, $1,200,000 from the Fire Department Capital Fund Number 287, $81,148 from the Police Federal Drug Enforcement Fund Number 299, $2,400,000 from the Local Income Tax Certified Sheriff's Fund Number 404, $804,900 from the Professional Sports Convention Development Area Fund Number 413, $8,145,350 from the Morris Capital Improvement Fund Number 416, $500,000 from the 2017 Parks Bond Capital Fund Number 471, $250,000 from the Solid Waste Operations Fund Number 610, $500,000 from the Waterworks Capital Fund Number 622, and $41,000 from the Unemployment Compensation Fund Number 713.
Thank you so much, Clerk Jones. Is there a committee report?
Oh, I'm sorry. This was heard in the Personnel and Finance Committee earlier today, and it's sent to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Parker?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to share my screen and go through a short presentation. This is the second of the two quarterly budget adjustment bills, so unlike the 13721, this one does ask for increases in the budget and in the form of additional appropriations. As we did in committee, I think it makes sense to split this kind of into two parts. This bill is a $16 million bill, as we just heard. Of that, 10.5 of it is related to the Morris 100 project. And then the remaining is a variety of other things. So if it makes sense to council members, we'll kind of split it into those two parts and maybe ask for questions when we get it through the Morris part and then again after the second portion. Related to the Morris 100 project, as I said, $10.5 million of this appropriation request is related to that project. As we talked about in committee this afternoon, the $2.35 million of that $10.45 million is actually an interfund transfer. So the idea here is to move money from the income tax fund into our Morris Capital Improvement Fund in order to cash flow some of these improvements. But that interfund transfer will be repaid with donations, and you'll see that in a second when we pull up the funding sources and uses for this Morris 100 project, Phase 1. Because $2.35 million is an interfund transfer, meaning it's us moving money from one fund to another, only $8.1 million of this appropriation is actually money going out of the city to various vendors. It adds to an appropriation of $1 million of ARP funds that has already been approved by council through the 2022 budget process for a total Phase 1 cost of $9.145 million. And when we look at where that money is coming from and going to, we have the following sources and uses of funds. So on the funding sources side, on the left side, we're using about $193,000 of money that was already in the Morris Capital Improvement Fund as cash reserves that was set aside for capital improvements at the Morris Performing Arts Center. $6.3 million of it will come from bond proceeds, which we'll actually hear about later tonight via resolution. Bill number 2155 will be actually authorizing the city to issue a bond in that amount to fund this Morris 100 project. As I said earlier, $1 million will come from ARP funds. So when we talked about the ARP funds appropriation, we talked about COVID facilities upgrades, and council appropriated $2 million to use for the Morris Performing Arts Center and the Century Center, so $1 million for each. And that would go to cover ramped up HVAC, things like that, touchless hand sanitizer stations, those kinds of things that will really get us ready to bring people back in a big way to the Morris Performing Arts Center. And so that will come from ARP funds. And then the remaining $1.7 million will come from donations. And so this is the portion that I said would be that $2.3 million interfund transfer from the income tax funds would be repaid with these donations that are going to be coming in over the next several years. And then I'll turn it over to Jeff Jernicki in a second to talk about the fundraising status of the Morris 100 project. On the funding uses side, you can see that this phase one is a lot of the bones of the building. It's the seats, the floor, the carpet, the furniture. There's also the big part is the Amoresco project, which is actually going to be talked about later tonight through Bill 2154. The approval of that agreement and that contract, that's for HVAC system, roof, a few other upgrades that we'll talk about in a little more detail. Energy efficiency light bulbs, but ultimately that's an energy savings contract where the savings that we generate from the upgrades in energy efficiency are expected to offset the cost of that contract fully. So that's the sources and uses on the Morris 100 project. Just to anticipate the question, I'd invite Jeff to come up and talk about where we stand on the fundraising side for it, as well as if he wants to add anything on the uses of these proceeds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parker. Could you give your name and address for the record, please?
Thanks, Controller Parker. Jeff Jernicki, Executive Director of Venues for the City of South Bend within the Venues, Parks, and Arts Department, 211 North Michigan Street here in South Bend at the Morris Performing Arts Center. Greetings from the Morris. We're excited to walk up to our anniversary, and not any anniversary, 100th anniversary at the Morris next year, to which we will celebrate officially on November 3rd when the building was opened some 99 years ago. And as part of that celebration, and as I've noted in a few other presentations, we didn't want to be late to our own party. And so we set out a number of years ago in terms of planning for this day to ensure that this community asset that produces $10 million worth of economic impact each and every year and welcomes more than 100,000 people in a calendar year to the Morris continues to live on, and even more in a meaningful sort of way for the next 100 years. So while we have a little bit of catching up to do in terms of existing improvements, we'll talk about those in just a minute, much of our work is targeted for the next 100 years. That work is being celebrated and coordinated by Greg and Mary Downs, who graciously offered to serve as co-chairs of the Morris 100 Committee, which is comprised of 65 individuals of our community that have set out to raise privately $30 million to ensure that long-lasting impact of the Morris Performing Arts Center. And to date, I'm pleased to share with you that we've raised more than $17 million towards that $30 million goal. Part of this then will be done in phases. So the first phase, as Controller Parker mentioned, are improvements to the existing building. Once we reach a certain number and get closer to that $30 million goal, it's likely that we'd be in a spot to add on to the Morris, to the north, between the Morris Performing Arts Center and LaSalle Apartments, which would include also a parking garage, around a 350-stall parking garage, and then enhancements to the John R. Hunt Plaza and the Carmichael Park that's there as well. And of the $17 million that I referenced, $10 million is a commitment from the city that the city has agreed to provide as part of that. A lead gift of $5 million from Mr. and Mrs. Murphy, Ernestine Racklin and the Carmichael Foundation, and then a number of residents and others in the area that have offered more than the balance of that $2 million to get us to nearly $17 million. We're optimistic because of the work of so many, including those in this room and leadership of the council as well, that we should be north of $20 million by the end of the calendar year. And then I'd lastly note that of that $30 million ultimate goal that we have, that includes two especially important items and endowments that would be created as well. The first being an Equity in the Arts endowment of at least $1 million, if not $2 million of that 30, that would live on in perpetuity to ensure that no generation misses an experience and opportunity to experience the Morris, whether as a child all the way through an adult. And then the second part of that would be a $2 million maintenance endowment, such that we never have to stand up here and ask for additional dollars to support the Morris, unless we're at a spot where we can continue to grow and expand and even add on to the building further. So we're excited about where we are. We're even more excited about where we're going in the future. We appreciate the leadership of this body, as well as the leadership of Greg and Mary Downs and Mayor Mueller, Aaron Perry, our executive director. And then really the work on the existing building was scheduled to take place pending approval and funding, and the contracts that are before you this evening between June 27th and September 30th of this coming calendar year. So we will indeed not be late to our own birthday party.
Okay, thank you so much. Council members, do you have any questions for Councilwoman Hammond?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. The amount that we see for the seat replacement and carpet, does that take care of the entirety of the need?
It does indeed. So while the chairs, thankfully and fortunately, aren't 100 years old, they are indeed 20 years old. And so we're at the point where we're reaching the spot with 100-year-old concrete. The chairs will no longer affix, in some instances, to the concrete. So all chairs would be replaced, all 2,564 seats within the theater themselves would be replaced, and all the carpeting within the theater itself would be replaced and updated to a more modern, progressive finish.
Thank you.
Does any other council members have a question for? Okay, at this point, then we're going to move on to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor? Oh, I am so sorry. That was only on the
No.
Morris part of it. I forgot you were doing that in two
Not-
different.
Not a problem.
Thank you,
I appreciate it.
Councilman
So as I said, this is a $16 million bill, $10.5 million coming from the Morris 100 project. In terms of the other significant appropriation requests in this bill, we do, as always, divide them into unanticipated expenses supported by new revenue, capital projects, and then administrative items. On the unanticipated expenses side, this is a little bit higher than we generally see in these quarterly appropriations bill, which is normal for the fourth quarter. These are things coming in at year end and trying to make sure we have enough budget to cover any costs as we get towards the end of the year here. Just running through them quickly, our property insurance premium has gone up significantly over the past few years, and came in much higher than was budgeted in 2021, and asking for an additional appropriation for that. Park maintenance and golf courses. On the park maintenance side, that was budgeted in 2020 during the pandemic, when we were unsure of where we were going to be from a revenue perspective, from a property tax perspective, as well as we were unsure what was going to be allowed to continue to be open, whether parks were going to be open, whether facilities were going to be open, that kind of thing. Fortunately, we were able to get more revenue than expected on the property tax side, as well as open a lot of the parks and facilities that we have, but with that does come additional expenses, and so those are for things like electricity costs, water costs, some salary costs as well is in there. On the golf courses side, it's a similar conversation to what we had in 2020. When I was here a year ago, we talked about how golf courses in 2020 had a record year in terms of the number of golfers. Again, in 2021, we even beat 2020. In terms of the number of golfers and the amount of revenue coming in the golf courses, which is great, but it does come with some additional expenses on the personnel side as well as on the supplies side, and that's what's going on there. We are asking for some additional work on the brownfields, specifically out of Fund 209, which is dedicated to brownfield remediation, specifically at the Studebaker site, some window remediation going on there, as well as continued work on the SpinTech site to the tune of about $240,000. And then lastly, as we talked about in committee, again in 2021, we saw a drastic increase from where we were pre-pandemic in terms of the amount of trash that we are taking on the solid waste side, which leads to increased landfill costs and tipping fees, and that's that $250,000. In the supported by new revenue, the majority of that is for the appropriation of CDBG awards. So that's money from the federal government and just allowing the city to continue to use that money out in the community for all the good things that it does through that program. On the capital project side, obviously the Morris 100 is the biggest piece of that, which we just talked about. But other than the Morris 100, just to run through a few other items, there is a fire truck in there for $1.2 million. As we talked about in committee, this would allow us to move the purchase of that fire truck from the 2022 budget, which is the purchase of this truck is already a part of the 2022 approved budget, into 2021, which would allow us to take advantage of some savings opportunities by purchasing essentially a spec truck or a demo truck with some customizations, but save a couple $100,000 by purchasing it early. But we do have to commit to that by the end of the year, which is why we're asking to move the budget into 2021. We would not buy two trucks. We're only buying one truck, so it's not both 2021 and 2022. It's just moving it from one year to the other. The lighting project at Four Winds Field, so this is the first use of the Professional Sports and Convention Development Area tax dollars. That new tax revenue to the city, not new taxes to residents. This is existing taxes, sales taxes and income taxes that were previously going down to the state but are now being captured by the city. This is the first use of that funding. We've gotten in 3 months of that funding, and based on the first 3 months, it looks very, very probable that we'll hit the $2 million cap that we have on that revenue fairly easily. So the first use of that is for upgrading the lights at Four Winds Field, which is the first step towards a lot of the upgrades that Major League Baseball is requiring of the Cubs. Prairie Avenue water main loop project, that's some work to extend the water mains out on Prairie Avenue to help support the new hotel that's going up at the casino. And actually the Pokagon band, this is pursuant to an agreement with the band that was approved by the Board of Public Works. And the Pokagon band will be reimbursing the city for the cost of this $500,000 extension of that water main. And then finally, $500,000 is the appropriation of the park bond interest earnings. So when we issue a bond, if we don't use all that money right away, if we have projects that are ongoing and take some time to actually pay out, that money sits in a bank account and earns interest. And so this would be the appropriation of the interest earnings on that bond. And then lastly, we have some small administrative items that are mainly, the primary one there of that $130,000 is related to an item that was paid out of an incorrect account, an incorrect fund in a prior year. And this would essentially just move that accounting to the correct fund. So we would decrease the expense in the incorrect fund and increase the expense in the correct fund. But we just need the budget to make sure that we put it in the right fund. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on any of these or on any of the other smaller items that are in the request.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parker. Council members, do you have any questions for the additional appropriations in this presentation? Seeing none? No? Okay, then I would like to move to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of Bill 138-21?
There is no one virtually that is expressing interest to speak in favor of this bill.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to Bill 138-21?
There is no one virtually that is wishing to speak in opposition of Bill 138-21.
Okay, thank you then. At this point, the public hearing on Bill 138-21 is now closed. Council members wish to make any statements regarding the bill before us? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion regarding the bill.
I move that we send Bill 138-21 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Okay, the bill's been, a motion has been made and duly seconded. Clerk Jones, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Vice President McBride? Aye. Councilmember Davis? Aye. Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
President White?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 138-21 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. Moving on to, I believe, is the last bill, is Bill number 139-21. Clerk Jones, could you please give that bill a second reading?
Yes. 139-21, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, authorizing the issuance and sale of an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $6,500,000 of the City of South Bend, Indiana Economic Development Lease Rental Revenue Bonds, Series 2022, the Potawatomi Zoo Project, and authorizing and approving other actions in respect thereto.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, this bill was heard in the Personnel and Finance Committee meeting earlier today, and it was sent to the Committee of the Whole with a favorable recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Parker?
Yes, thank you. So Bill 139-21 is the Potawatomi Zoo bond ordinance. So as we talked about in committee, this approves a bond issuance. The bond would be backed by the portion of the St. Joseph County Hotel Motel tax revenue that is set aside for the Potawatomi Zoo by state statute. We expect about $5.6 million in bond proceeds for the project. The project would fund capital projects as a part of the zoo's 30-year master plan. I'd be remiss if I didn't say it's going to lions and tigers and bears, because it actually is. It's going to the lion exhibit and the tiger exhibit and to help fund a bear exhibit, so it's pretty fun. I'm going to ask Randy Rampola from Barnes & Thornburg to come up to actually talk about the structure of the bond and where it's been, and then we'll talk a little bit about the finances. So, Randy.
Good evening. I'm Randy Rampola with Barnes & Thornburg with offices at 201 South Main Street. So these bonds would be issued by the city, as Dan mentioned. They would be issued as economic development revenue bonds. The proceeds of the bonds would be provided to the Zoological Society for it to build all of those improvements for the lions, tigers, and bears. The bonds would be secured by a lease, and the lease would be between the City of South Bend Building Corporation and the Redevelopment Commission. We would provide for, we have provided for the lease of certain roads around the zoo, and the reason for the lease, as was mentioned in the committee, because the lease will be backed by the hotel motel tax revenue, but also by a tax backup, it would be subject to the debt limit of the city if it were not structured as a lease. So it is being structured as a lease to avoid the application of the debt limit to the financing. The lease rentals will be the source of income, if you will, to pay the bonds back. So the principal and interest on the bonds will be paid from the lease rentals, and the lease rentals will be secured by the hotel motel tax revenues primarily. The financial advisor to the city, Baker Tilly, is structured, and Dan will show you the coverage for the bonds, so there will be sufficient revenues to pay the debt service from the hotel motel tax. That's the 0.5 that's been allocated to the zoo from the hotel motel tax. To get a better interest rate in the market by getting a better rating on the bonds will also be secured by a special benefits tax levy that the Redevelopment Commission would have the ability to levy on the redevelopment district of the city, which has the same boundaries as the city. This financing technique the city has used before. I think the most recent was the double tracking project back in 2019. The tax backup mechanism is widely used around the state of Indiana so that cities and towns and counties can get the best interest rate in the market, which produces the best rating in the market, which produces the lowest interest rate, which will yield more bond proceeds. But again, the expectation is that the hotel motel tax will be sufficient by itself to pay the debt service on the bonds. And again, the structure of the bond in this manner will allow the Zoological Society to complete all of those improvements, and the lease will allow the Redevelopment Commission to pledge the hotel motel tax with the tax backup to provide security for the financing. I'm happy to answer any questions, otherwise I'll turn it back over to Dan.
Okay, thank you so
Yes.
much. Council members, is there any questions? Councilman Davis?
Yeah, Dan, this is a question about the Zoological Society. Years ago, I passed some legislation to create the partnership between the city and Zoological Society in order to enhance the fundraising efforts of those who were from the community that wanted to participate in undergirding the zoo with funds, and obviously I heard that the relationship is still there. How is that working for us?
I'm actually going to ask Aaron Perry to come up.
Because it's been some years. When the presentation was being made, it jogged my memory.
Yeah, I think it first started in, Aaron Perry, Executive Director of South Bend Venues, Parks and Arts, 219 South St. Louis Boulevard. Thanks for asking the question, Councilman Davis. The original public-private partnership was formed in 2015.
That's when it was?
Yep, and
Okay.
with support of the Common Council. It was a 5-year contract, and really it had two primary goals. One, to enhance the quality of the zoo offerings, and two, to decrease the type of public taxpayer dollars that were going towards the zoo. In 2020, we took a look at that, and those two things happened. The amount of private support came in at an overwhelming rate, one that is really credited towards a very engaged board at the zoo, and Josh Sisk and his entire leadership team. So that happened, and the zoo was costing the city taxpayer dollars on average about $1.5 million a year. The new negotiated agreement that went into place just starting in 2021 has us, has us cutting that about in half by the end of the agreement. So we feel good about that, but it also frees up additional public flexibility to do things like we're talking about here today, to invest in big ticket items, not just operations. So it's been a success across the board. If anybody's been to the zoo lately, I think it kind of speaks for itself. But we appreciate the council's support in getting that off the ground. It's been renewed for another 20 years, actually, so.
Thank you for your
Yep.
answer.
Is there any other council members that have a question? No? President White? Make sure you don't have any. Okay, then at this point, we will move to the public portion. So is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of Bill 139-21?
There's no one from the virtual public that has expressed an interest to speak in favor of Bill 139-21.
Thank you. Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one wishing to speak in opposition as well of Bill 139-21.
Thank you so much. At this point, then, the public hearing on Bill 135-21 is now closed. Council members wish to make any statements regarding the bills? Councilwoman McBride?
Chair, thank you very much. I just want to say to the presenters how excited I am being the chair of the Park Committee. Always seeing the park continue to grow and the partnerships that have been developed throughout the years, and seeing the zoo coming and just flourishing and steadily increasing with people coming from all over the state and the country and even all over the world to be a part of it. And to be a part of that transition has been amazing. So I'd just like to commend Executive Director Perry and also the attorneys for making sure that the partnerships are working together and that we're continuing to get private-public partnerships, and making sure that we're increasing with the giraffes and the lions, tigers, and bears and everything. I mean, so going there is just transformational. And if you haven't been there, I just encourage that every council member at least would go and take a look at the zoo, because it's definitely a sight to see and a big earmark in our city.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other council members wishing to make a statement this time? Councilwoman Rachel Tomas Morgan?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add to Councilmember McBride's comments. It really are, both the zoo and the Morris are destination locations. These are important anchors to our city, draws tourism, and it's just, it really is exciting to see both these projects expand and gain increasing support. Anyway, that's thanks to the wonderful leadership that Councilmember McBride just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments by council members? Councilman Lee?
Just want to say that, again, echoing all of the statements of my council colleagues, the Morris and the zoo are great institutions here in our community. A lot of fond memories, a lot of great experiences I've had at both of those places. And so I'm excited because I'm so glad to see our zoo is evolving and improving and getting better. But we had a lot of memories at Potawatomi Zoo and the park and all of that. So I'm excited that things are moving forward, and thank you to all that are working to make our zoo a better place.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from any other council members? If not, or seeing none, would like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 139-21.
I'd like to make a motion that, in favor of the lions and tigers and bears, that we move Bill 139-21 to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Second?
Okay, thank you. There has been a motion and it's been duly seconded. Clerk Jones, could you please call the roll for 139-21?
Yes. Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President McBride?
Aye.
President White?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 139-21 will be sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation. At this point, I would like to entertain a motion to rise from the committee of the whole and report back to the full council.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Can we do all those in favor, or do you have to do a roll?
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
The full council is now back in session. This is the portion of our meeting where bills are given a third reading and actions taken regarding the various bills that were heard during the committee of the whole. Clerk Jones, will you please give Bill 131-21 a third reading?
Yes. 13121, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 2730 Mishawaka Avenue.
Councilwoman Sheila Nisgowsky, is there a recommendation from the committee of the whole regarding Bill 131-21?
Yes, Bill 131-21 was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion regarding Bill 131-21.
Move for passage.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and it has been seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Not here.
President White?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 131-21 has passed. Clerk Jones, will you please give a third reading to Bill 135-21?
13521, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, repealing, superseding, and replacing ordinance number 1082021, and fixing the annual pay and monetary fringe benefits of not to exceed $6,500,000 of City of South Bend, Indiana Economic Development Lease Rental Revenue Bonds, Series 2022 Potawatomi Zoo Project, and authorizing and approving other actions in respect thereto.
Thank you. Would now like to accept the motion.
Yeah, I think you skipped somewhere through the,
Well, 135?
It jumped a page on, when you turn the page.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
okay, that's okay.
I thought it sounded strange. Okay. I'll do it again.
Okay, please, thank you.
13521, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, repealing, superseding, and replacing ordinance number 1082021, and fixing the annual pay and monetary fringe benefits of sworn members of the South Bend Fire Department for calendar years 2022, 2023, and 2024.
I would like to entertain a motion to accept the substitute version of Bill 135 as amended in the Committee of the Whole?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll? I don't need to have a roll call on that one, I'm fine. Okay. I'll now entertain to go to Councilwoman Niskoski. Is there a recommendation?
Excuse me, President, you do have to have
I
a
thought, yeah, I
a
thought I
vote,
did.
but it does need to be a roll call.
Okay. It does. Okay, I would like to entertain a motion to accept the substitute version as amended in the Committee of the Whole.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
And
All
thank you.
council members that are in favor of the motion, may I hear your vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Now we go to Councilwoman Niskoski regarding a recommendation regarding substitute bill 135-21.
Yes, President White, that Bill 135-21 was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the substitute version of, regarding the bill that has been presented from the Committee of the Whole? That's the substitute bill 135-21.
I'd like to move. Second?
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
President White,
Aye.
8 ayes.
Substitute Bill 135-21 has passed. Clerk Jones, will you please give Bill 136-21 a third reading?
13621, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, adopting an investment policy for the City of South Bend for calendar year 2022.
Thank you. Councilwoman Niskoski, is there a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole regarding Bill 136-21?
Yes, President White, Bill 136-21 was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
I will now entertain a motion regarding Bill 136-21.
Move for passage.
Second.
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
President White,
Aye.
8 ayes.
Bill 136-21 has passed. Clerk Jones, will you please give a third reading to Bill 137-21?
13721, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, for budget transfers for various departments within the City of South Bend, Indiana, for the year 2021.
Councilwoman Niskoski, is there a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole regarding Bill 137-21?
Yes, President White, Bill 137-21 was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Now entertain a motion regarding Bill 137-21.
Move for passage.
Second?
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
President White,
Aye.
8 ayes.
Bill 137-21 has passed. Clerk Jones, will you now give Bill 138-21 a third reading?
13821, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appropriating additional funds for certain departmental and city services operations for the year 2021 of $229,500 from the General Fund Number 101, $1,070,000 from the Parks and Recreation Fund Number 201, $262,000 from the Studebaker Oliver Revitalization Grant Fund Number 209, $415,466 from the DCI Federal Fund Number 212, $44,000 from the Law Enforcement Continuing Education Fund Number 220, $380,000 from the Liability Insurance Premium Reserve Fund Number 226, $10,000 from the Local Road and Street Fund Number 251, $29,100 from the IT Innovation 311 Call Center Fund, number 279. $1,200,000 from the Fire Department Capital Fund, number 287. $81,148 from the Police Federal Drug Enforcement Fund, number 299. $2,400,000 from the Local Income Tax Certified Shares Fund, number 404. $804,900 from the Professional Sports Convention Development Area Fund, number 413. $8,145,350 from the Morris Capital Improvement Fund, number 416. $500,000 from the 2017 Parks Bond Capital Fund, number 471. $250,000 from the Solid Waste Operations Fund, number 610. $500,000 from the Waterworks Capital Fund, number 622, and $41,000 from the Unemployment Compensation Fund, number 713.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. Councilwoman Niskoski, is there a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole regarding Bill 138-21?
Yes, President White, Bill 138-21 was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
I will now entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Niskoski,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Thank you. Bill 138-21 has passed. Clerk Jones, will you now please give Bill 139-21 a third reading?
13921, third reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend authorizing the issuance and sale of an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $6,500,000 of the City of South Bend, Indiana Economic Development Lease Rental Revenue Bonds, Series 2022, Potawatomi Zoo Project, and authorizing and approving other actions in respect thereto.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion regarding Bill 139-23. Councilwoman Niskoski, is there a recommendation from the Committee of the Whole?
Yes, President White, Bill 139-21 was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Now I entertain a motion and a second.
Move for passage?
Second.
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis, Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Niskoski,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Bill 139-21 has passed. We'll now move into the resolutions section of our meeting. Clerk Jones, will you please read Resolution 21-53?
2153, a resolution of the Common Council, City of South Bend, Indiana, acknowledging and congratulating the South Bend Fire Department and other city departments for achieving the Class 1 Public Protection classification from the Insurance Services Office.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, this bill was heard in Health and Public Safety Committee earlier today and was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the sponsor. We do ask you to state your name and your address for the record, please. And that is Councilman
Sponsor.
Henry Davis.
Sorry.
No problem.
Sponsor Henry Davis Jr., Second District City Council, South Bend, Indiana. My address is 5117 Idlewood Drive, South Bend, Indiana, 46619. This is in reference to the classification that the fire department was recognized for getting. I wanted, before I started reading it, I want to say something really quick. The ISO rating, and this is, something that's maybe foreign to other people, those who are listening in, and maybe those who are sitting up here with me right now. ISO stands for Insurance Service Office. So this is based upon the insurance classification in which the fire department has made leaps and bounds in ensuring success as they go out and secure and provide services to the city. And so ISO, which is this for-profit organization, gives these ratings out. Much obliged to South Bend Fire Department to make sure that everybody knows that South Bend has a pretty good fire department. So I think that deserves a round of applause because those guys do service us every day. And so what I'm reading, it says a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, acknowledging and congratulating the South Bend Fire Department and other city departments for achieving the Class 1 Public Protection classification from the Insurance Service Office. Whereas the South Bend Fire Department for many years have been recognized as one of the finest fire departments, not only in the state of Indiana, but also across the entire nation. And whereas the Insurance Service Office, ISO, is an industry and recognized authority on qualifications of the fire departments. And whereas ISO fire protection assessments are divided into 10 public protection classifications, with Class 1 generally representing superior fire protection. And whereas ISO recently announced that the South Bend Fire Department has achieved the Class 1 designation, and whereas Class 1 designation is achieved by only about 1% of approximately 39,200 fire departments rated throughout the country. And whereas Class 1 designation represents the hard work of not only members of the fire department, but also other city departments that support the South Bend Fire Department in its mission. Now and therefore, let it be resolved by the Common Council of the South Bend, Indiana, as follows. Section 1, the South Bend Common Council proudly acknowledges and congratulates the South Bend Fire Department on achieving the highest classification designated by ISO. Section 2, the South Bend Common Council also recognizes, the hard work and other contributions made by other city departments in achieving the Class 1 designation. Section 3, the South Bend Common Council desires to make city residents aware of the superior fire protection offered in the city, a protection not enjoyed by many other communities across the country. Approved this day, the 13th of December, 2021. Thank you, Bob, for helping me out or constructing this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Councilmember Davis. Councilmembers, do you have any questions that you would like to ask the sponsor at this particular time prior to going to the public hearing? Then I will circle back, and council members would like to make comments, you'll be able to do so at that time. Seeing no questions from council members, is there anyone in person wishing to speak in support of Resolution 21-53? Seeing no one. Clerk Jones, is there anyone online wishing to speak in support of Resolution 21-53?
Actually, we do. We have Chief Carl Buchanan.
Thank you so much, Clerk Jones. First and foremost, it would be remiss of me not to
You're muted.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I took it off mute, but for some reason it didn't want me to talk, so it back out. Anyway, I apologize for that, but I'd just like to say briefly that this is definitely not about Carl Buchanan or any one individual representing the South Bend Fire Department. This is a collaborative effort by every man and woman that have been a part of the South Bend Fire Department since before I even started, that have continued to put South Bend Fire Department at the highest esteem, providing the best service that we could for our community, because that's what we care about. We care about every individual in this community. Doesn't matter about status pro quo or anyone's residential means. It's about taking care of humans and making sure that everyone benefits from the services that we provide. So that is what this is all given for. It's given for all of their hard work, all the ones that came before me, all the ones that was with me hand in hand, side by side, and all of those right now today that continue to give that 24-hour commitment to the citizens of the South Bend, city of South Bend. But also too, for the communications department and for the waterworks department, as well as for our community risk reduction and our continuing education in fire prevention in all of our departments. It's a whole collaborative effort that everyone involved have achieved this great honor. I just happen to be at the top of the ladder right now, but I can't sit up here and say that I, as a solo, had anything necessarily to do with this. This is all the men and women every day that go out there and respond at a moment's notice, whether it's day, night, or in between. They give their all to show that South Bend Fire Department is one of the best in this country. And so to that, thank you, Councilmember Davis, for presenting this resolution. I appreciate you, and I appreciate all of the council members for all of your dedicated work of what you do for the city. But thank you so much for recognizing the South Bend Fire Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, as well. Clerk Jones, is there anyone else wishing to speak virtually in support of this resolution?
There is no one else virtually wishing to speak in support of this resolution.
Okay, we'll now move. Is there anyone who would dare to speak in opposition at this time?
There is no one who would dare to speak in opposition.
Thank you. The public hearing portion is now closed. We'd like to turn it back over to council members if you'd like to make some statements at this time. Any councilman? Councilman Lee?
I would just like to thank Councilman Davis for putting this resolution together. Again, with the work that I do in my other life, I deal with the first responders on a very close basis, and we do have an excellent fire department. And the work that they do and the things that they do, a lot of times people don't recognize it. So to be recognized by the Insurance Service Office, that's a huge accomplishment. And, we have an awesome fire department. And so to the chief that's listening, thank you for your leadership, and continue to lead our fire department to greater heights. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other Councilman Wax? I'm just going to go straight all the way down to all the council members.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wax?
Thank you, President White. Thank you, Councilman Davis, for giving us the opportunity to show our appreciation and recognize the fire department for the great achievements that they've had. It's not only in this, they've routinely been recognized over and over as being an excellent department in so many areas. And it's always wonderful that we get the opportunity to show a little bit of our appreciation. And thank you, Chief Buchanan, and all the men and women of your department for the amazing work that they do.
Thank you. Councilwoman Niskoski?
Thank you, President White. Yes, I'd like to thank Councilman Davis for bringing this resolution today that is before us. Thank you, Chief, for all the work that you have done in representing the fire department. You have a wonderful crew of men and women that represent our city, that serve our city, and certainly during the last 2 years has been very challenging for everyone, especially for our first responders. So I'd just like to say congratulations on this achievement. And thank you for all the dedication that you have shown the residents of our great city of South Bend.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hammond?
Thank you, President White. I'd like to also thank Councilman Davis and Chief. In our last conversation, this award of a Class 1 was much anticipated, and something that you were hoping would come through quickly, and we're very happy for you. Congratulations, and we are very honored to have the men and women serving us in South Bend. So congratulations to everyone.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan?
I add my congratulations to my colleagues, and thank you, Chief Buchanan, for your leadership. This is an honor well-deserved. I have an uncle who's a retired firefighter in Denver, Colorado, and I know well the sacrifices that fire make on a daily basis. And these past 2 years have been especially challenging. So thank you for your leadership during this difficult time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman McBride?
Thank you so much, Councilman Davis. And also to you, Chief, and all the men and women who serve on the department for risking their lives every day and for such a thankless job, unfortunately, but well-deserved, and we are definitely second to none. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to also offer my words of thank you and congratulations. I would first like to thank Councilmember Davis for bringing forth this resolution. I know firsthand the work that the firefighters do continuously, and the work during COVID I know it has been very, very challenging. Just this year, first responders came to my home for my mother 3 times, and the care and how they handled that situation, I'm telling you, it was just amazing. So, Chief, please share that with those first responders that came to my home. They've been to my home 3 times this year just to ensure that my mother was able to make it to the hospital safely, and I'm very, very appreciative. And this resolution is long overdue. Thank you so much. I'll now entertain a motion regarding Resolution 21-53.
I'd like to move for passage.
Second.
For adoption. Sorry.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you as well. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nitzkowski?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President McBride?
Aye.
President White?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Resolution 21-53 has been adopted. Clerk Jones, will you please read Resolution 21-55?
2155, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a lease between the South Bend Redevelopment Authority and the South Bend Redevelopment Commission relating to the Morris Performing Arts Center and taking other actions related thereto.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, this resolution was heard in Personnel and Finance Committee earlier today and is sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter?
Yes, President White, Dan Parker, City Controller, office on the 12th floor of the County City Building. So this resolution is related to a bond issuance that we discussed earlier for the Morris 100 project. So as with the zoo bond that we talked about during the ordinances section, this is a lease rental revenue bond. It'll be backed by the portion of the St. Joseph County hotel motel tax that is set aside for the Morris Performing Arts Center. We expect it to be fully funded through that hotel motel tax. We expect about $6.3 million in proceeds. It's a little bit higher than on the zoo side because the bond would be structured as a 24-year bond as opposed to a 20-year bond, which is why we're able to get a little bit more on the project side. And as before, I'll turn it over to Randy Rumpolo from Barnes & Thornburg to talk about the structure of the bond.
Good evening again, Randy Rumpola from Barnes & Thornburg with offices at 201 South Main Street. This is a resolution and not an ordinance because these bonds would be issued by the Redevelopment Authority and paid for from a lease between the authority and the commission. So the civil city itself won't be issuing the bonds. So as the council, you're being asked in the resolution to approve of the issuance of bonds by the Redevelopment Authority, as well as approve the form of the lease between the commission and the authority. The leased property here will be the Performing Arts Center itself. And as Dan mentioned, the lease rental would be payable by the commission to the authority from that hotel motel tax. It will have the same type of tax backup as well to provide that additional security to get the better rating in the market and produce the lower interest rate to generate more usable proceeds for the project at the Morris. The lease rental, the lease is, as Dan mentioned, is a little bit longer here. The lease is actually not to exceed 25 years. The interest rate set out in the resolution is at 6.5%. We would expect the lease term and the interest rate to be reduced following the sale of the bonds. And in fact, the lease has language that the annual lease rental and the lease term would be reduced to match the debt service that the bonds will require to be paid from the lease rentals. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council members, do you have any questions of the petitioner? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation. We'll now go to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone in person wishing to speak in support of Resolution 21-55? Seeing no one, is there anyone, Clerk Jones, virtually? There is no one virtually wishing to speak in support of Bill 2155. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition? There is no one virtually wishing to speak in opposition. Is there anyone in public wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, the public hearing portion is now closed. Council members, would you like to make any statements at this time prior to entertaining a motion? Seeing no questions, I would like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 21-55.
Move for passage.
Second.
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll? Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Wax.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Vice President McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis. President White.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Resolution 21-55 has been adopted. Clerk Jones, will you please read Resolution 21-54?
2154, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, selecting a qualified provider, approving a guaranteed energy savings contract for improvements to the Morris Performing Arts Center, and taking all other necessary related actions.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, this resolution was heard in the Personnel and Finance Committee earlier today, and it was sent to the full council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. We do have a presenter. We do ask that you state your name and address, please.
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. My name is Aladine DeRose. I'm an attorney with the legal department located on the 12th floor of this building. And now that you have approved the funding, I am pleased, very pleased, to present this good news resolution. In 2022, as Jeff Jarnicki told you, we mark and celebrate the Morris Performing Arts Center's 101st 100 years as a city treasure, cultural, and social center. This bill brings to the Morris a future as a 21st century energy efficient facility. Through the contract before you, the Morris Performing Arts Center will be equipped with long-lasting, high-efficiency LED lighting and an updated electrical delivery system throughout, with new energy-efficient heating and cooling system, a new roof, a new fire alarm system, among other improvements. This is good news not just because of the upgrades, but also, as you heard, because the cost is not from local property tax dollars. The hotel motel taxes come from those revenues of tourists, business, and other travelers who come to our city. The tool for Morris development for these improvements under Resolution 2154 is a guaranteed energy savings contract, a special type of program provided under Indiana law. Energy savings contracts began in 1992 through the U.S. Federal Energy Policy Act, which was then made permanent in 2007. Indiana's law adopts and is similar to the federal model. It requires two things, basically: a qualified provider and a contract with that provider for energy savings improvements or measures which pay for themselves in energy or operational savings over the life of the contract and which are guaranteed by the contractor. So not only are the revenues supporting the bonds from the hotel motel tax fund, tax board, but also the contract is guaranteed to pay for itself. The history of this bill began in 2015 when you as a council approved an energy savings contract with the same provider Amoresco, Inc., for energy savings improvements to Century Center. That has proven to be a success, and we learned this afternoon for the first time that the actual savings on this contract in its 6th year, that is 2021, were above and exceeded the projected savings for this year. In 2017, you as council designated the Public Works Department and the Board of Public Works as your agents to identify, to review, and consider future improvements throughout the Venues, Parks, and Arts Department under Indiana Energy Savings Contract Law, and to make advisory recommendations to you of these energy savings contracts. This bill is one of these energy savings measures, and the Public Works Board, following strict requirements of law, both identified a qualified provider, reviewed that provider's estimates and contract, and now recommends your approval through this resolution. The recommended contractor, Amoresco, Inc., checks all the, quote, qualified provider requirement boxes under Indiana law. It is experienced in the design, implementation, and installation of energy savings conservation measures all across the country and South Bend in specific. It is certified as a guaranteed energy savings contractor. Its services are provided through a professional engineer licensed under the requirements of Indiana law, who is an employee of Amoresco, Inc., and is supervised by that company. It provides monitoring of the facility's performance, and it performs at least 20% of its work with its own workforce, with the remainder to be provided primarily by local contractors. The requirements for a valid energy savings contract under Indiana law are basically what I mentioned previously, and this contract meets all of them. The measurements and improvements to be provided in the contract must result in savings from either energy consumption or usage costs, or savings in usage costs or increases in billable revenues. Those realized savings must pay for the cost of all improvements over the 20-year term of the contract, and which are guaranteed then by the contractor. That guarantee is backed by a promise for reimbursement of any difference between the savings as guaranteed under the contract and as actually realized. And as I mentioned, the 2021 savings on the Century Center roof project have exceeded the projections. The strict notice and publication requirements of the law have been met as assured by you from the Board of Public Works process. And so all of the requirements have been met, and with that, I thank you for your attention, for your support of the Morris and all of the VPA facilities, and hopefully for your approval of the passage of this ordinance. If you have questions, those that I can answer, I will. And we have a technical expert who is Rebecca Plants, a city assistant engineer present, as is Jeff Jarnicki and Aaron Perry. Thank you.
Council members, do you have any questions at this time? Council members, any questions? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We'll now move to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone in person wishing to speak in support of Resolution 21-55? Seeing no one. Clerk Jones, is anyone virtually waiting to speak in support of this resolution?
There is no one virtually waiting to speak in support of Bill 2154.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one waiting to speak in opposition of Bill 2154.
The public hearing portion is now closed. Council members, do you have any statements you would like to make at this time? If not, I will entertain a motion regarding Resolution 21-54.
Move for passage.
55.
54.
54, I'm right, 54.
Move for passage.
Second.
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
8 ayes.
Resolution 21-54 has been adopted. We'll now move to Bill's first reading. Clerk Jones, will you give Bill 140-24 a first reading?
Yes. 14021, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 340 East Walter, Councilmanic District Number 5, in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
I will now entertain a motion to send Bill 140-21 to the Z&A Committee in public hearing and third reading set for January the 24th, 2022.
So moved.
Second. Do I need to do the roll call?
No.
No, I didn't think so. All council members in favor of the motion, may I hear your vote?
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Clerk Jones, will you please give first reading to Bill 141-21?
14121, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 1105, 1111, 1115, 1117, 1118, 1120, 1121 Campbell Street, and 1116, 1124, 1125, 1128, 1132, 1133, 1134, 1135, 1136, 1137, 1140 Corby Boulevard, Councilmanic District Number 4, in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. We'll now entertain a motion to send Bill 141-21 to the Z&A Committee, public hearing, and third reading set for January the 24th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
All council members, we have a motion, it's been seconded. All council members in favor of the motion, may I hear your vote?
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Clerk Jones, will you please give first reading to Bill 142-21?
14221, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving a petition of the Advisory Board of Zoning Appeals for the property located at 1165 South Franklin Street.
Will entertain a motion to send Bill 142-21 to Z&A Committee for committee meeting, third reading, and public hearing set for January the 10th, 2022.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion, it's been seconded. All council members in favor of the motion, may I hear your vote? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. We'll now move to unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Seeing none, we'll move to new business. Councilwoman Lori Hammond.
Thank you, President White. I would like to read a short email from James Turnwald, who is the Executive Director of Michiana Area Councils of Governments, or MACOG. Councilwoman Hammond, as a MACOG board member and city council member, we do kindly ask that you announce at your next council meeting that MACOG, in partnership with Transpo, are kicking off an 18-month study of the existing interurban trolley and Transpo bus system and developing a 10-year plan for the future of transit in this region. Branded Connect, this regional transit plan will focus on understanding community and regional transit needs, consider a full redesign of the regional transit network, and develop a 10-year plan for prioritizing a range of transit investments to improve mobility and access for residents, businesses, and visitors. Our project website will launch soon at www.connecttransitplan.com, and the first of 3 rounds of public engagement is scheduled to begin in mid-January. We look forward to engaging with all of you in the entire region throughout this process. Thank you. Again, that's from James Turnwald.
Thank you, and could you share that email with Clerk Jones so she can place it on the website? Thank you so much. Is there any other New business, Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan.
Thank you, President White. This was announced earlier in committee, but I'd like to make the announcement here as well for the public to join the city for a presentation on the 2020 census, A Decade of Progress, to be held this Friday, December 17th at 1 p.m. at Howard Park Event Center. There are appetizers and beverages that will be served starting at noon. Presenters are Mr. Joe Molnar and Michael DeVita, who will give us a comprehensive presentation on the census. So all are welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
President White,
Councilmember Davis?
thank you for recognizing me. Tomorrow, I'm having my last of a series of town hall meetings over affordable housing. All are welcome, all are invited. I'm sure you all got an email about it. I just wanted to make sure I made another announcement about it. It's tomorrow at Charles Black Center, starts at 6. And we are pretty good about getting out of there after 2 hours. We understand that 8 o'clock we all turn into pumpkins. So we do our best on making sure that we're respectable of everybody's time. So come on out. Tomorrow, the conversation is about affordable housing, but we're talking about the barriers of affordable housing. So we have a local developer, council member, Kenneth Lee will be there in his capacity. We have Mr. Pete Taddeo that's going to participate as well. He's a large landlord in our city. And we're just trying to, in some way, erase the stigma from affordable housing versus low-income housing, but the need of affordable housing throughout our city. It's a broad topic, very, very broad, a lot of information in between affordable housing. I'm learning as I go as well. So we invite experts in, we share conversations and efforts to improve what we have here as our housing stock. So all are welcome. I look forward to seeing you all there, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other new business that council members would like to share? Seeing now, we'll now go to privilege of the floor. Is there anyone that still is in the audience that would like to come and speak on the privilege of the floor? Please state your name and your address. You have 3 minutes to speak to items that were not on the agenda.
Sharon Benicki, 3822 Ford Street. I wasn't going to come tonight, but then another city employee told me that if I didn't show up, his Monday night would not be complete. So Andrew, here I am. I don't normally write down what I want to speak about ahead of time, but tonight I knew I had to plan ahead. So here goes. Many people question me on why I fight so hard for Teamsters or the people who have their boots on the ground doing the actual physical labor. Why do I seem to always be down on the administration and its policies? Some question my loyalty to my political party. My dad worked for the city for 42 years. 42 years for the park department, 25 years as assistant screenkeeper at Erskine, 17 years at Howard Park Garage as a small engine repair person. Now I realize most, well, probably all of you have never met my dad, but he was awesome. And growing up, I remember him talking about contract negotiations. Sometimes it was, well, no raise this time, maybe next time. Sometimes it was, well, they gave us 5 cents this time. Or, well, they didn't cut staff this year. Well, they cut staff by 1, 2, or whatever the number was. He never complained, it was just stated as facts. So sending scraps to the Teamsters isn't something new. It's been going on for over 60 years that I know of. So while administration looks down their noses at blue-collared workers, I would love to see any of them, the mayor or any of his highly valued key employees, drive a trash truck, fix a lawnmower, repair a chainsaw, mow the greens correctly. I speak up for the ones that continue to work even though the contracts the city offers are insulting. I speak up in memory of my dad and all the other workers just like him. When you laugh because you tricked or pulled one over on the Teamsters, you are laughing at not only the hard workers, but you are laughing at all their families and friends, and I personally found it very offensive. My dad finally retired. He wasn't called in for any ceremony, no big presentation from the city. In fact, he worked that whole day, until 30 minutes before his last shift. His buddies that he worked with pitched in to throw him a retirement party, such that it was. A lackey, my dad's word, not mine, from the mayor's office showed up, pulled a key to the city out of his pocket, and handed it to my dad. When I asked my dad, what about the mayor, he just shrugged his shoulders and said he must have been busy. 42 years my dad worked for the city, and all he got in the end was a key to the city and lymphoma, found 6 months after he retired, from the chemicals that were used on Erskine Golf Course back in the 60s and 70s. So I fight for the ones who are overlooked, the ones that are doing the physical work and treated as if what they are doing isn't as important, if not more important, as the ones sitting in offices. I fight to change policies to be more equal for all employees, not just the chosen white-collared workers. It was 6 years ago today that my dad passed away from the cancer that he got working for the city for 42 years. And now you know why I fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other, making sure that I have not overlooked anyone in the audience and making sure that council members have had the opportunity? I would like to personally thank the council members and wish you a very happy, blessed, safe holiday. And that goes to everyone that's listening, to all of our employees. Remember that we're still in a pandemic and we need to continue to practice social distancing, but enjoy your family, love on your family and your friends, because we're all that we have. We're in this together, and together we'll come out stronger. So have a very, very happy, blessed holiday. Try not to eat too much.